Welcome to Moo Math and Science. In this video, I'd like to talk about organic and inorganic compounds. Many of the compounds found in living things contain the element carbon, which is usually combined with other elements. This large class of chemical compounds, in which one or more atoms of carbon are covalently linked to atoms or other elements, and most of the times it's hydrogen, oxygen, or nitrogen, are called organic compounds. There are several important groups of organic compounds found in living things. They are proteins, carbohydrates like sugar, lipids, which are fat and waxes, and nucleic acids such as DNA and RNA. Organic compounds can be very large and complex. A compound that does not contain carbon and is usually simple are called inorganic compounds. There are exceptions to this, such as carbon dioxide, and also this would include carbides, carbonates, and cyanides. But generally, inorganic compounds do not contain carbon. They also are more simple than an organic compound. So there we go. Organic compounds contain carbon. Inorganic compounds do not, except for the few exceptions. Thanks for watching.
Coal, oil, and natural gas are fossil fuels. They were formed hundreds of millions of years ago when decaying plant and animal matter were buried under layers of mud, rock and sand which started to fossilize them. Although fossil fuels are made in similar ways, coal is made slightly differently from that of oil and natural gas. Coal was made mainly from trees and other plants, whereas oil and natural gas were formed from organisms living in fresh water, including plants and plankton. These fossilized remains were changed by the high pressures and temperatures under the earth to form the fuels we search for and dig up today. Natural gas is often found with oil, trapped between layers of rock. It is mainly methane, CH4, and is frequently used in our homes, piped underground to be used for cooking and heating our water. Coal is a valuable resource and is in great demand as a fuel for the use in power stations to generate electricity. It's also used in the production of steel and also in the manufacture of cement. Oil is especially valuable, and the reason for this is that it is actually a mixture of hydrocarbons. When oil is separated by fractional distillation, we are left with fuels useful for cars, lorries, planes, as well as chemicals used in the manufacture of a variety of different materials, including plastics. Our videos on fractional distillation may help you understand this process in which crude oil is separated. However, there are problems associated with fossil fuels. Burning fossil fuels produces carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas and contributes to global warming. Sulfur dioxide is another gas that can be formed during combustion, which causes acid rain. Fossil fuels is a finite resource that will one day run out. It is therefore important that we focus on developing renewable resources for our electricity generation in the future.
Dyes, types of dyes, and dyes uses. First synthetic dyes was developed by William Henry Perkin. Definition: a natural or synthetic substance used to add a color to or change the color of something. Dyes contain chromophore and oxochrome groups. Chromophore imparts color to the dye. Important chromophores are NO2, NO, N bond N, C double bond O, C double bond S. Oxochrome intensifies the color of the dye and forms chemical bonds with fibers and attaches the dye to fibers. Important oxochromes are OH, COOH. Structure of dye is a group of 1. Chromophore, 2. Oxochrome. When aniline reacts with para-aminoaniline to form aniline yellow dye. Dyes are classified based on chromophore present in the molecule, such as nitro dyes, NO2, nitroso dyes, azo dyes, N bond N, and quinone dyes, C double bond O. Another classification of dyes is a method of application of dyes to the fiber, such as acidic dyes, basic dyes, direct dyes, Mordant dyes, and vat dyes. Uses of dyes. These coloring substances are used in different types of industries. These are used in textile, paper, leather, wood, and food industries. Example: soluble dye and mordant added to the soaked fiber to form insoluble dye coating on the fiber. In food industry, natural dyes are generally used, but now federal agency has allowed the use of synthetic dyes, but within a permissible level. Variety of petroleum-based items such as lubricating oils, waxes, gasoline, and polishes use these coloring substances. To color fur, hair, and other biological samples, you can use various types of coloring substances.
The building blocks of life can be organized on a ladder where each component is made up of the items below it on the lower rungs. Atoms make up simple inorganic compounds. Simple inorganic compounds make up simple organic compounds. Simple organic compounds make up complex organic compounds. These complex organic compounds are what build living organisms, starting with the cell. We can work our way up the ladder using the example of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms that build simple inorganic compounds, carbon dioxide and water. Carbon dioxide and water are used to build glucose, a simple organic compound. If you string a bunch of glucose molecules together, you can make a complex organic compound, starch. This lesson will focus on the complex organic compounds like starch that build cells and therefore living things. There are 4 basic types of complex organic compounds that make up life: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. Carbohydrates are made up of the elements carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in a 1:2:1 ratio. That means that for every carbon atom, there are 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 atom of oxygen. Some examples of carbohydrates, or formulas for carbohydrates, are C6H12O6, C5H10O5, and C8H16O8. These formulas all represent sugars. You can see that in each of these formulas, there are twice as many hydrogens as there are carbons or oxygen atoms. Sugars, like this glucose molecule, are the building blocks that make up carbohydrates. It is easy to spot a sugar molecule because they all have ring-shaped carbon skeletons. Sugars are connected to form carbohydrates through a type of reaction called dehydration synthesis. Each time a link is formed between two sugars, a molecule of water is released. The fact that you are losing water is where the word dehydration comes from. Synthesis means to make. Carbohydrates are used by the body mainly as an energy source. This is why people carb load before a game or competition. Carbohydrates are also used in some cases as structural support. Examples of carbohydrates include starch, which is a molecule used to store energy in plants, glycogen, which stores energy in the muscle cells of animals, cellulose makes up cell walls of plants and is used for structural support. Chitin is a carbohydrate that forms the shells of crustaceans and insects. Lipids, like carbohydrates, are made up of the bioelements carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. These bioelements are found in the building blocks of lipids, glycerol, and fatty acids. To make a lipid, 1 glycerol and 3 fatty acids are linked together by a dehydration synthesis reaction. For each link that is made between glycerol and a fatty acid, 1 water molecule is released. There are a wide variety of lipids that have various functions around the body. For example, fats are lipids that allow for long-term storage of energy, cushion for your body, and insulation to keep you warm. Phospholipids are a major component of the cell membrane. Estrogen and testosterone are lipids that act as hormones. Proteins are composed of the bioelements carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. It is the addition of nitrogen that sets proteins apart from the other complex organic compounds that we have discussed so far. Nitrogen is not found in carbohydrates or lipids. The building blocks of proteins are amino acids. There are 20 different amino acids that have similar molecular structures except for the R group, which differentiates each amino acid from the others. Proteins are made by covalently bonding amino acids together. Each time an amino acid is added to the chain, a water molecule is released. This means that this is a dehydration synthesis reaction. Proteins are used for a number of functions around your body. Some proteins form structures like muscle, hair, and fingernails. Others act as enzymes to speed up chemical reactions in the body. Proteins also make up some of the components of your blood. Nucleic acids are composed of the bioelements carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. The building blocks of nucleic acids are nucleotides. Nucleotides have 3 parts: a nitrogenous base, which contains nitrogen, a 5-carbon sugar, and a phosphate group, which contains phosphorus. Nucleotides are strung together by dehydration synthesis reaction. Each time a link is formed between 2 nucleotides, 1 water molecule is released. When nucleotides bond together, they form nucleic acids, like DNA and RNA. Both of these organic compounds store genetic information.